and I'd like to jump straight in this week with an article I sent you actually, which was by a chap called Alistair Heath in the Telegraph. And the title is quite provocative. For the first time in my life, I'm now beginning to think Britain is finished. And in this article, Alistair Heath talks about things like the NHS, people who are out of work benefits, the woke takeover, immigration, woke war on free speech, jailing of preachers, Christian preachers, sugar tax, surveillance society, COVID lockdowns. But then interestingly, the thing he homes in on is the thing that's kind of maybe sent him completely over the edge, is the current level of anti-Semitism that's happening within the UK. And he calls it the oldest of hatreds, which is an interesting phraseology, I think, because it probably is. And if you I know you study world history, Nick, so it has been happening for a long time. And I think what's interesting about this, and I'm interested in your views, obviously, first of all, the general sense that I'm thinking Britain is finished is that side of it. But the fact that he does focus in on the anti-Semitism, because what he's really saying is something that I thought we conquered decades ago, racism, to extreme racism in this country, has re-emerged almost untarnished and unvarnished back into society. And I just would be interested to know if you think that's the case.
Yeah, there's many reasons for these issues here. Is Britain finished? I don't think so. But we're in a really poor state at the moment, absolutely. Why are we in this state? It's down to the weakness of our political leaders. Why do we have weak leaders? And I've said this before, it's because we've spent 40 years in the EU, where we didn't need strong leaders, we needed middle managers. And that's probably the crux of why we're in the situation we're in now, because of the lack of leadership. He's right, nothing works in our country anymore now. We've been coasting along the last few decades on the success of previous generations. So if you can imagine a flower growing in the ground, beautiful flowering plant, and someone cuts off at the stem, it still looks like a beautiful flower for several weeks. It's still beautiful, it's just the nutrients in its stem, in the leaves, are still feeding it, but it's basically dying. And that's what happened to our country several decades ago. Not just down to joining the EU, but that's part of it. So we've been living on the success of other people for many generations now. And now the chickens are coming on to roost. So nothing works. At the same time, we've had a technology called the internet and social media thrust upon us, where even the most outrageous, silly idea now has traction, now can be delivered to an audience of millions, to a whole country, to a nation, to the world. And most people are idiots. Most people are uneducated. I include myself in this. Most people are.
These are your potential voters, by the way.
We just need to understand that most people are idiots. We live in a world where we all think we're more intelligent than we are. And we're not. It's the modern world enables us to think we're more intelligent. We have electricity, we have lovely houses, we have cars, we go on a holiday, we have jobs. Our job may be part of a complicated chain of things to do, but we're just one cog in the wheel. We don't understand anything else apart from the one thing we do. No one understands history, no one understands geography, no one understands science. You can't make electricity. If I asked you to make electricity now, would you know how to?
Yes. Magnet and a wire induce an electric.
I just remembered you've got a degree in
electronics.
Right, yeah. Do you know how to make bread?
I'll have a go. I could make bread, and I have made bread. However, I wouldn't.
Are we going to edit this bit out?
No, I know. But what I was going to say is, I wouldn't know how to grow the yeast. So I have an understanding of how to make bread. I have an understanding of how to make electricity as well. But if you asked me to do it from scratch, I wouldn't be. I think there's a really interesting point here. Have you heard of the Dunning-Kruger effect?
No.
So the Dunning-Kruger. Have you heard of? There is another. So the opposite of the Dunning-Kruger is called imposter syndrome. Have you heard of that?
I've heard of imposter syndrome.
So imposter syndrome is where people, I think, who tend to be like you and me, think how the hell did I get here? At some point they're going to find out that actually I don't really know anything about anything, and all this success and everything I've achieved will disappear. So that's imposter syndrome, and without flattering us, it tends to be more intelligent people that have imposter syndrome, because I think they're more aware of what is out there, and they're thinking, well, I only know such a little bit, why am I successful? So Dunning-Kruger is the opposite of this. It's been, I assume it was named by scientists. This is people who aren't very intelligent and aren't very capable, who think they are far more capable than they are. Now,
they're all on the social media.
They're on the social media, but I think what's interesting, because as you know, I employ a lot of people, and I see a lot of people in my work environment, and the number of Dunning-Krugers now has increased dramatically in business, I've noticed. The number of people who will come for jobs, even senior jobs, board level jobs, who come into an interview and will present themselves as, I know all about this or whatever, and within a few questions you can flush them out as actually knowing very little. I mean, it's a technical thing, but I interviewed somebody for an accountancy position the other day, and I asked them how you, I'm not wishing to bore our gentle listeners, but I asked them how you reconcile a sales ledger control account, which is a very basic accounting technique. And this woman who'd come for the job as an accountant couldn't do it. Now, it's something a good accountant would say, well, you do this, that, then you take away the cash or whatever, and that's it. And she couldn't actually do it. And I had to keep prompting
because
her.
all she knows is the computer program that does it for her. So she can type in the numbers.
Yes. Yeah.
But anything else she doesn't know. So she thinks she understands it, but she doesn't.
Yes. And I think that fits directly into what you were just saying. People now are seeing a very small vision of their world, and they believe that is the world because they understand that bit. But the more you read about history, and this Dunning-Kruger thing, I think just ties nicely into what you've been talking about. People have really now started to overestimate their own ability, skills, and importance in the world, if that makes sense.
Hence why everything's crumbling and why nothing's working, because we have people who think they can run that department who haven't got the skills to do it.
Yeah.
But some have been promoted because they're black, they're gay, they're a woman, whatever.
Yeah.
Some of them I've managed to... being interviewed is a good skill.
Yes.
I've worked with people in the council who got jobs over me because they did excellent interviews.
Yes.
We all knew they knew nothing.
Yeah.
But when your interview is basically a tick in a box, as in they can answer that question, that question, that question, that question, you get the job because you've got more points now.
Yeah.
But there's no practical ability of what they can do.
Yes.
So some people have been trained to be good at interviews, so they get the jobs.
Yes.
And then if they're not good at that job, some of these services are crumbling. Now the last point this gentleman who you sent me the article mentioned was the anti-Semitism.
Yes.
We've had this conversation before. What happens when you've got a multicultural society and things start going wrong? People start turning on each other. You start wanting to belong to a group that will protect you. And the oldest group to blame for everything are the Jews. It's always Jews behind world conspiracies, behind the... I had some guy tweet me the other day, and he basically said the First World War and Second World War were started by Jews. So this is a long... I was like, I don't know where you get that from.
Hitler being one of the most notorious Jews that we...
Yeah, exactly. It's like, what are you talking about? But when we're going into... We're not in the middle of bad times yet. We're on the first step of bad times that are coming. This is the first step. We're already turning on each other. As a country, we've already become anti-immigration for good reasons.
Yeah.
Because resources are tight. Nobody cared. Most people didn't care 20, 30 years ago, but we care now because resources are tight. Within the communities we have now in the UK, some now are going back to the old stereotype of it's the Jews. Hence why they're looking at the Free Palestine marches, all the anti-Semitism's coming to the fore. There'll be people on the right now who will also jump on board now, not just the far left. People on the right will be going, I never really did like those Jews. I kept my mouth shut for 30 years, but I always thought it was the Jews, and now the people are saying it's the Jews. And that's why that's coming to the fore now, the anti-Semitism. If you like that video, don't forget to subscribe to the channel, hit that notification bell and comment. And if you like what I'm saying about running for Mayor of Greater Manchester, then stick around. Tell your family, tell your friends. The only way I'm going to have a chance of winning is a grassroots movement. So be part of that movement and hit that bell. Thanks.